We see a couple of things very different. So instead of giving another PEP lecture, which is pretty much useless in a quarter of an hour, because it's such a complex thing, I think I will try to mention some differences. I think the biggest difference, I have to say, is that PEP is not about security. And I think that's a big misunderstanding. What we always had the last 20 years in crypto community is that we are focusing too much about security because our issue is not security, it's privacy. And that's a very different thing. Actually, sometimes security and privacy come together. So you need highly secure crypto to guarantee and implement security, but it's not the same thing, because there are actually very good approaches to make you very secure, highly secure, like the Web of Trust, for example, is a very good example for the opposite. But the Web of Trust means you're actually publishing your social graph. So you're giving away privacy, buying security. And I think one thing which is very different for PEP for sure is that when it comes to a point that privacy and security don't go together, then for PEP it will be always privacy, because I'm very convinced that the biggest problem we today have is that mass surveillance problem, and that has to end. And if you want to end the mass surveillance problem, I'm pretty sure you must focus on privacy, and that's what we are doing. The reason why we are doing it, or the way we want to do it, is I totally agree with Volker that email will not go away. That's the reason why I didn't reject that.
I didn't say it goes away. I just asked the people.
Yeah, sure. I'm sure, you know, that's a bit tricky, but I'm sure, Volker, it's actually true, email will not go away.
I gave a hand and I lied.
Yes. Unfortunately, I must mention, unfortunately, it will not go away, because one of the major problems we are facing is that email is, as it is, the perfect infrastructure to do surveillance. You have Gmail as the hugest provider, so a company specialized on doing surveillance and making that a business model, because working with the data of the users and selling results, which is basically it's like a huge private intelligence service business, you can say. So finding out results out of people's personal data and selling that as a business model. And this is not by accident. It's not that Gmail just happened. It's happened, it can happen, because email is so good for being surveilled. So I'm pretty sure if we can do anything, then let's try to move, at least try to move as much traffic away from infrastructure, which is very good for surveillance guys, and move it into infrastructure which is very hard to do mass surveillance with. So that is where PEP is heading to. PEP is a project with a clear goal. Can we move as much text messages into a situation where we have metadata protection? Metadata protection is the most important thing we need to achieve, because most of the mass surveillance projects are working with metadata. It's a common mistake that the content of your messages, the content of your emails, is the most interesting thing for the guys who are doing the surveillance. That's wrong. The most interesting thing is, when are you communicating about what, in parentheses subject, about what topic, with whom, at which time? Because that gives the social graph again, that gives the way you're communicating, that gives your behavior, and even the rest of content, the subject, gives enough information to categorize. So actually, the biggest issue we are facing today in the view of PEP is that we have the situation of all those metadata surveillance, and this has to end. The internet has to be fixed. For PEP clearly is the internet, there may be no mass surveillance possible in such an easy way anymore. Because then you make mass surveillance costly. If you make it costly, they will invest more money. If you make it costly enough, it gets to an end. If we don't make it costly enough, and that means moving as much metadata, as much content of communication into a situation where we have metadata protection and you see nothing, you don't see anymore who is communicating with whom. If you don't manage that, you just establish and help at last with mass surveillance. And mass surveillance is the problem, I'm pretty sure, for democracies. So when it comes to PEP, I think that's a major difference. So the full direction PEP is going is into the idea, how can we start encrypting? How can we help application developers? By the way, you said, Holger, you said Enigma is an MUA. I think you meant Thunderbird because Enigma is not an MUA. Okay, sorry. So how can we help guys like the Thunderbird guys or the K9 guys or other guys who are writing MUAs not needing too much knowledge about encryption? Because that is the next thing I'm personally convinced of, because after so many years constantly failing, trying to convince people implementing crypto, trying to convince users using crypto, it's really a mess. We failed for 20 years, right? The crypto party movement is just amazingly good in teaching, and everyone comes and everyone is interested. And the result is, if you measure how many emails are now encrypted, then, well, it's nearly nothing. So how can we change that? And for PEP, it's clearly the next thing, privacy by default. We need to change that now. It's gonna time that when a user opens a message or creates a new message, opens one and presses reply or creates a new message, then that thing what goes out has to be encrypted. And all we need to do is we need to discuss and design and do research in, and that is what PEP is doing, how to make it possible. A user only writes a message and press send. And all other things have to be behind the person and have to be done now that the message goes out encrypted. And if ever possible, the message reaches the recipient via a path which cannot be tracked and the metadata is protected. So all what PEP is doing is heading into clearly this direction. And we know, I think we know, that it's very hard for even brilliant application developers, and we have, fortunately, brilliant application developers. You see it, the success of the internet is brilliant application developers, but it's very hard for them to deal with all such crypto ideas. It's not so easy. It's a totally different know-how what you need, and it's as well difficult for crypto nerds to deal with brilliant application development that you use inside your application. You all know that. And as a result, we want to fill that gap. We want to provide a software component which is free for the application developer to use. And if you use the component, the crypto stuff is being done correctly and as good as possible and as protected as possible. And that is the PEP engine. That is why we're doing it.
Any questions for Volker at this time?
Is it fair to say that your criticism of AutoCrypt is that there's no focus on metadata and your focus is only on metadata in a certain sense?
First, I hope we can convince AutoCrypt to accept such ideas, and I'm happy about the discussion. Second, that's two things. We need privacy by default. That's a clear statement from PEP. And the second thing, so I really dislike to hear that you don't want to encrypt by default. I have the hope that you do. And the second thing is, yes, you're absolutely right. PEP is not able to deliver metadata protection in the first version. But we need designs now which head to that and end up at that point. So I hope that we can convince AutoCrypt 2 to go that direction, yes.
Can you speak up loud?
Yeah, I can try to speak up loud.
Right.
I mean, we are seeing about a decade of usability research when it comes to security projects. There have been almost dozens of SOOP conferences, and I'm not convinced that a back-end engine will bring us usability in the front end. Can you somehow say why you have found the holy grail in secure encryption?
Yes, the last question is very easy because we didn't. It's not that easy. Actually, what we're working on, we already had the criticism that we have too bad documentation, which is totally true. And the reason for that is that we're actually trying out the problems and to solve problem by problem. So we have an incremental process of development at PEP and taking care of problem by problem by problem by problem to solve such questions. And now it's not so easy, and we don't have the Holy Grail, unfortunately. No, we don't. But what we actually are is, after 3 years now, we are in a position that I can tell you that we solved plenty of the common user interface problems with crypto already. I'm convinced that we did already, and now we are implementing that and putting it into apps, and you will see that. But no, we didn't solve all of them yet, but we're working on it.
Can you somewhat prove your statement? Do you have any usability research that says that it's okay-ish?
You can try it out. I think that's the best answer. Download, for example, PEP for Android and try it out.
And I'm a nerd. I'm not the usual usability.
Yes, sure. There will be a PEP design lecture where I will talk about details to exactly that question. May I invite you? When will it be, Nana? I'm sorry. Tomorrow 10 p.m.?
PM is fine, AM is not.
AM will not happen if I'm giving it, I can guarantee that. So.
I try to briefly improve Volker's answer for you. The security problems that you've been studying are security problems, and so Volker doesn't solve security, he tries to solve privacy. And so the usability problems are rather different.
Yes.
So all of the security problems you ever solve of trust don't even apply to Volker. And so in that respect, you know, he may decide that many of the usability issues you'll see.
Unfortunately, some do.
You had another question?
If you invite people, maybe tell them where to meet as well.
Oh, okay.
Yes, sorry. With the hands-on sessions, including design, may I personally invite you? We first meet at the PEP assembly, which is at the same time the GNU assembly. And if only a handful of people appear, then we just do it on site. And if not, we have spaces where we then go to. So the meeting is at 10 p.m. at the GNU/PEP assembly.
And we have 6 hands-on sessions now. They're all online on our wiki page, or find them in the self-organized session calendar, blah, whatever. But they're all online now.
Okay, is it one last short question before we go for the panel?
May I add something?
He had one more question.
No, to the last question.
One extra statement. PEP is not doing crypto, with one exception. We are not a crypto project. The only thing we do is user interface. We do nothing. We are using actually GNU-PG, and we're using GNU-net as engines. We don't do crypto, okay? We made an exception for iOS because there's unfortunately no GNU-PG for iOS, and so we hacked NetPGP that we can use it as a replacement. I hope we get rid of it and we find any way that we can use GNU-PG because we want to drop it.
Yeah, last question is, when I last checked, PEP, not all components were open source. Do you have plans to fully open source PEP?
Tell me one single component is because they are all open source and all free software.
Okay, I wasn't able to find build instructions for the Outlook plugin.
A build instruction, yes. There is a Visual Studio file in it, and you can just click and open it.
Okay, and I just didn't find the documentation, yeah.
Yes, I have to say that, yes, maybe we have too less documentation, I know, totally true. Our documentation is, I think we have even way more documentation than you think, and we are very bad in organizing it, and we're just working on researching our websites that people start to find the documentation which at last is here. I have to mention that we are trying to support the built environments that the application developers actually are using. That means we are supporting Visual Studio, not kidding, as free software project. We are supporting Xcode, we are supporting Kdevelop, we are supporting Android Studio for exactly that reason.
Okay, thank you, Volker.
Thanks.
There now, Volker.
Okay.
Matthias? Neil?